Rajam Bayana, Zobe Sanje Ribada Shazon Demba Devreship, Jidin Jamba Jivon de Rakalo Java Lana, Tadam Menanje Demba Sanje Jumden de Bejo, Shaja Tuba La Chansen Roche de Jazuji, Demba Jumden de Jinshe Wan Rajam Bayana, Zobe Sanje Ribada Shazon Demba Devreship, Jidin Jamba Jivon de Rakalo Java Lana, Tadam Menanje Demba Sanje Jumden de Bejo, Shaja Tuba La Chansen Roche de Jazuji, Demba Jumden de Jinshe Wan Rajam Bayana Wanzobes, Ribada Shazon Demba Devreship Wan Jidin Jamba Jivon, Kalo Java Lana Meba Lada Menanje, Sanje Jumden de Bejo, Shaja Tuba La Chansen, Chöda Jazuji, Kanze Ganyan Zowaja, Sajen de La Gomba de Brune, Manin Jiden de Nojoja. Tezekeba La Chahaze, Namla Gonga Jogo, Ishe Jazu Seja Numboda, Taban Jiden Sumana, Gombo Choni La Chahaze, Senjo de Mojima, Selo Rava La Chahaze, Jureja La Siva Suma, Yame Kenjen La Chahaze, Gombo Tujeje, Tamje Kembe, Dumbabu, Sonam Yulenja, the Jenja La Chahaze, Tabe de Jatra, Given as all letters, Jit, the Lama Tsongkapha, Shinjurja. Trene Trebe Lanya, Dian Labata, Rabu, Shinga, Gilvina Chahaze, Montebachi, and Mrs. Gava. Rangis Tene Yonzo, the Tene Sanje Demba, Karmara, Gimaseva Chibroda Melon, Genda, the Jeshano Dead. Some day at Jesse, when you go on to the Ginger, the Batanata, Shiva Love. Sibeson and the one Jewelry show.
To the teacher, the blessed one, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the teacher, the blessed one, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the teacher, the blessed one, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. Widow supreme among humans, you were born on this earth. You paced out 7 strides, then said, I am supreme in this world. To you who were wise then, I prostrate. With pure bodies, form supremely pure. Wisdom ocean like a golden mountain. Fame that blazes in the 3 worlds. Winner of the best, to you I prostrate. With the supreme sun's face like spotless moon. Color like gold, to you I prostrate. You are immaculate, the 3 worlds unknown. Incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the teacher having all understanding, field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean. To you, the one gone to thusness, I prostrate. The purity which makes one free from attachment, the virtue which frees one from the low realms, the one path, the sublime, pure reality. To that Dharma which pacifies, I prostrate. Those who are liberated and also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts. To you, the sublime community intended virtue, I prostrate. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions, subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits, the sentient beings attain the rank of all seeing, subdue the flow of faults, and be deliberate from the ocean of suffering, of aging, sickness, and death. I go for refuge and talent enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge and talent enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge and talent enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings.
So to read from this, the root text. So the root text says, therefore dependent natures, which is the cause of the imputed things, has intrinsic existence. It emerges in the absence of external reality. It actually exists, and it is beyond the realm of concept. So the mind-only school, explaining the three characteristics of the dependent originations. So in mind-only school, dependent originations means it's only dependent originations only in the category of the conditional things. So the unconditionals are not dependent arising. So mind-only, in the Madhyamika school, every phenomenon, every object is dependent arising, right? So the Madhyamika says a dependent arising in the sense of cause and effect, dependent arising in the sense of designations.
So the both are dependent arising. So in the mind-only school, the meaning of the dependent arising, the depending on cause and condition, things that are arises due to their own cause and conditions are the dependent arising. Other than that, anything that permanent nature, unconditions are not the dependent arising in mind-only school.
Huh.
Yeah. That's a new product from the Apple. So the mind-only school, they always say is a narrow definition of the dependent arising. So narrow definitions of the dependent arising. So Madhyamika says the dependent arising in the sense of cause and effect or the designations. So anything that is unconditioned still, arises through the designations. So therefore, it is a dependent arising.
So the other translation says that in terms of a dependent nature, it says other powered nature. So that means same thing.
Yeah. So I think here the each translation they translate the here it's a dependent natures. Jeffrey Hawkins, his translation always use very much like the Tibetan words, Xiangwang, other powered nature. Always is other powered natures. Mm-hmm. This is the language that used in mind-only school. Xiangwang,
It's not used in Madhyamika.
Madhyamika, even the ordinary people, when they come and the ordinary people they speak, Xiangwang means you have no control, you have no free. So you are always do things, following the orders of someone. So that's what we call Xiangwang. You don't do anything out of your own will. So you have to be told what to do. Right? So that is in the ordinary language, this is what we use. In mind-only school, they still use Xiangwang, other powered means anything that has born has no control by itself. It's always created, designed by the other factors. So therefore, other powered natures.
Two questions, Geshe. I may be confused here, but first question has to do with, as I recall, maybe I don't have the verbiage quite right. There's two schools of thought, and I don't remember the Tibetan words, but one was other-powered and self-powered. That there were two schools. Maybe I'm confusing the concepts. The other thing is
other power and solar power. Did you say other power and solar power?
Self.
Self-powered.
Now, when I look at this root text here, therefore, dependent nature, which is the cause of imputed things. They're talking about two things here: imputed things and has intrinsic existence. And if I take out that phrase, therefore dependent nature has intrinsic existence. If I take out that dependent, which is the cause of imputed things, it sounds like, first of all, it's saying, therefore dependent nature has intrinsic existence. That's number one. Number two, it breaks it into two sections. It emerges in the absence of external objects. Now, when I read it emerges, the dependent nature emerges in the absence of external objects. That sounds just like they're talking about mind-only school, because in mind-only school, external objects don't truly exist.
So what you're reading is we haven't come to that point.
Oh, we haven't?
Yeah.
But let me just say,
You are having breakfast on the Monday. We are on Sunday. You are having Monday's breakfast.
It sounds like 1 and 2 are talking. One is talking about mind only. One is talking about Prasangika school.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, that's
Yeah.
my question.
So I think here the Prasangika is here. Chandrakirti thinks that to understand the Prasangika school point of view more clear, first you have to understand the mind-only school point of view. And then when you see there's some kind of, lack of some invalid reasonings and some kind of the not complete. So then you can understand the incomplete, right? So then you can understand the Prasangika school point of view. So in the language, sometimes is very powerful. In mind-only school, the language they use, the dependent originations are like Tenjin Dewanjong is dependent rising. So that language is often used in Prasangika school, mind-only school, everywhere. Now, the mind-only school choose one particular languages for the dependent originations is Xianwang, other part. So, yeah, so the mind-only school thinks that anything that is coming out of the cosmic conditions has to be truly exist, because things that are born from the cosmic condition must be truly exist. Therefore, it is always intrinsic and true. And things that are not born from the cosmic condition, but still it exists, means, that is existing of that is imputedly. So by imposing and imputing, things can be exist. So that is not born from the cosmic conditions. So this is, in the mind-only school, says this is not the other power natures. So any imputedly existings do not have any kind of, the function of itself is always projected, created, imagined by the thought. Right? So imputedly existing and other power natures, it says. So all the dependent arising in the category of other powered, so things that are powered by the cosmic conditions. Right? So then that is the reason of being born from the cosmic condition is the mind-only school saying this is the valid kind of the reasoning to think this is truly exist. So mind-only school said the consciousness are truly exists. Even the thought is truly exists. Thought and imagination of the thought and characteristic of the thought. So the mind thought is always within the category of the consciousness. Therefore, it is always arises from the cosmic conditions. Yeah. So every thought, every consciousness, every mind must be truly exist. An image of the thought is superimpositional imaginations or impositional, right? So So Yangda Mai, yeah, there's a so one of Lubin Lodin says that he always says Yangda Mai Gudo Yu. Whatever thought has conceived and imagined, right? It is not truly exists, but one who imposed or imputed that thought is truly exist. So thought, whatever the thought has imagined, object may not be truly exist, but the subject which has imagined that the very thought must be truly exist. So the consciousness and the I consciousness and the object of I consciousness. So the object of I consciousness, like a form, is the consciousness. When they perceive the form, apprehends the form. Form appears to the consciousness as independent. Right? Form appears to the I consciousness as something independent. So minority schools say that is not true. Form, sound appears to the air consciousness as independent. That is not true. Taste and tactilities, all of them like that. So there's, because the minority school reject that, there is no such thing as external reality, right? External reality. So, So here in this text, saying that there's the three characteristic of other power nature or the dependent nature. So dependent, which is the cause of the imputed things. So if those other power natures are the basis for the secular existing to the cause of the secular existence cycle in samsara by superimposing on the other power natures. And these other power natures are the cause of the liberated being, and cause of the liberated being to find the right path, for the liberations by understanding perfectly what the other power nature is. So the other power is the here it means cause, means like it's the basis for one to confuse in cycle in samsara, one to gain knowledge to lead to liberations. So dependent natures, which is the cause of the imputed things, has intrinsic existence. So that basic must be truly exist. So then says, and then the way it being other powered or way it being dependent arising is always emerges in the absence of error. External reality means it always emerges from the propensity, seed, and habituations. So it's always arising from the mind basis of all. So it's a basic for basic for the samsara to confuse in cycling in samsara, and it is the basic for the noble beings to gain perfect knowledge and go to the liberations. So therefore, it must be truly exist. Other power nature or the dependent nature must be truly exist.
So this seems like this is their way of both working in negating external reality and then also avoiding nihilism.
Yeah, it's kind of they're saying if if one, for example, noble being and ordinary beings. Ordinary beings constantly cycling samsara because of this other power nature. So why? They misconceive the dependent nature, therefore they're cycles. there is a noble being who has find the path to the liberations by understanding the perfect knowledge of the other power natures. So that the very basic must be truly exist. That must be truly exist. So he said, to see the coiled rope as a snake, you cannot have this misconceptions of the coiled rope of the snake or knowledge of the coiled rope as a coiled rope. Only it is possible when there is the rope. If there is no rope truly exists, and there's no confusions, there's no knowledge, right? So you cannot have a misconception of the coiled rope as a rope in the sky, right?
Now, let me just try and clarify a few things. It seems, if I heard you right, you're saying, first of all, it's being asserted that foundational consciousness truly exists, and that's the thing that drives noble being towards liberation.
No. Not the foundation. Like other power natures, like table, house, consciousness, things that, dependent arising, conditional things. So my knowledge school says this: what we see, what we hear, what we smell, what we taste, and including the subject, the consciousness, the perceiving, all of them must truly exist. So when there is something to see, something to hear, something to smell, and a taste and a feel, and there is a subject which is seeing something, hearing something, and then all the experience are truly exist, object and the subjects are truly exist. Now, this is the basis. Now, ordinary people misunderstood the object, misunderstood the subject, therefore they are in second and samsara. Noble being understands, the nature of this form, sound, smell, taste, texture, and the perceptions. So therefore they find the path to liberations. So the dependent nature of the other power nature, that is not only referring to the mind basis of all, anything that is, happening due to the cosmic condition are truly exists. This is my knowledge school things. So the cause of this samsara and the liberation is one, misconceive, misunderstand, right? And therefore samsara. One understands as they are, therefore there's the liberations. So the coil rope must exist in order for one to misconceive the coil rope as a snake. One, understands have the knowledge of the coil rope as the rope, not the snake. So without truly existing of the rope, there is no misconceptions of the coil rope as a snake. There is no knowledge, the coil rope as the rope, right? So the mindfulness school idea is that, so the object of the dependent rising, the subject dependent rising are all truly exist. And then what is the problem, which is conditioning the sentient being to cyclic existence? And then there's all dualistic. The problem is not understanding that, non-dualistic of subject and object. All the subjects is the reflections of the objects are the reflection of the subject. It's all manifests, arises, form within the consciousness. So therefore, this is So therefore, if the other power nature or the dependent nature is not truly exists, and then there is no cycle existence, there's no liberations. Right. So additional to what they say is, so therefore there is no external. So the externals, the two things, one that is the form, sound, smell, taste are formed from the collection of the minute particles. So they says that is not true. The form, sound, smell are all emerges from your propensity, which is within the mind basis all. Right. So that's the external. Another thing is that every object is, every object is part of the subject. Every object, like your imagination, your, concept, characteristic, and then, the sound, form, sound, smell, taste. Every object that conceptually conceived and imagined and perceived are no different from the consciousness. So that's the minor school things. So when it comes to the refuting external reality, then the debate is Siddhantika school and Vibhashika school, the Sangha school. They all say the form that you see is not born from the consciousness. It is formed from the collection of the particles. So the minor school, do not agree on that. So it's not, from the collection of the particles. If the particles are the condition to form, the color of the shape, then each particle must be formed from their particles and their minute particles. And that each minute particles formed from a minute partless particles. So there is no minute partless particle, therefore no particles to form anything that you can see. So there's a little bit, what do you call it? Sometimes people say leap of faith.
Yeah, leap of faith.
Leap of faith.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some kind of there, the data and your speculations is not really matches.
Mm-hmm.
There's more desire than what you find from the data you collect. So data you collect is not exactly telling you as you think, but you want to, make that conclusions. So, and Aryadeva says, you are saying there is no minute partless particle because the partless particle cannot form anything that has physical because it is the partless. Partless means therefore directionless. Anything that has no directions, how can it can form anything, right? It has the directions. So the Ayurveda says that you can constitute the particles, the molecules are not directionless, or you can say that there is no such minute partless particle. That only you can prove that, right? So you can say there's no possible of partless particles which can form anything which has the parts.
So when
and then what is the the minority school says therefore no external is the leap of faith. So you only prove forms are not from the partless particles. So what you can negate is partless particles. Now this is the extra, decisions that you're making out of, independent from the data that so say, oh, therefore there is no color the outside of the mind.
When it's said that those particles don't have direction, how I think I understand it is like if you have a circle, you can say here's the top half of the circle in this direction, and then the lower half. And like, is that how you can understand it? Because it's like you can physically separate regions, kind of like that, or does it mean direction as in like it goes to the left, it goes to the right, like within a space?
Yeah. In the classical form, the directions, which is like, front and the back,
Right.
and left and the right. So, in some form that you cannot really, physically prove this is the east, this is the west,
Right.
but you can sense it has motion. So when it moves forward, it's not backward. So it might backward is not forward. So it has the directions. It can go to this direction, that direction. Right. So many of those minute, what called particles, when collect, and it can create physical form. Right. So now it says directionless particle cannot form any physical. That we can understand. So my own school also pointed to that. So how you come to the conclusion, because there is no directionless particle can form any physical, therefore external not exist. We can say external exists, but not from partless particle. External forms are physically, physically can be seen, hear, smell, taste. So those physical forms are collectively, they're formed from the, particles which has directions.
Yeah.
It's the amen. So there's a little bit, leap of faith. It's what we call overestimating.
For the Cittamatra to say,
Yeah.
oh, there is nothing, because that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So like, oh, it's almost like they're saying, it's like, well, that doesn't make sense, so therefore it can't exist at all.
So, maybe if we push the mindfulness school more and more, they get, oh, I'm not interested. Oh, I have to go to the bathroom. So no comment or something like that. So there's some kind of, there's a leap of faith in there. So the Prasangika school you can choose particles, minute particles with direction. It can form physical. Minute particles which has no direction cannot form any physical. So these two options. And you have a third option, you said, therefore no externals. That is, what do you call it? Yeah, it's kind of
overreaching with
yeah.
your data.
So this is like, scientists has proven that it's a Big Bang, therefore God exists. Or no one can recall the first human being, how he born, how he came to this earth, therefore God exists.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of, yes, what do you call it? This liberal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Liberal faith. Yeah. So sometimes you are using ignorance to, to make the decisions. So no one can disapprove me. So therefore, I'm going to say this. So that, so to understand the Prasangik school, exactly, and you have to understand what is mindfulness school's standpoint. So the dependent natures, which is cause of the imputed things, means it is the basis for sentient being to cycle in samsara, and it is the basis for noble beings to find the path to liberations. So therefore, it is crucial, it is important. So therefore, it must be intrinsic existence. And then it merges in the absence of external reality. So in independent risings, it emerges from, propensity which is within the mind basis of all. So therefore, no external realities. It actually exists, means therefore, there is the propensity within the mind basis of all to manifest, to form into the color, sound, smell, taste. Therefore, the seed and the manifestation, maturation of the seed are truly exist. Actually exists. So now it is beyond the realm of the concept. Beyond the realm of the concept, that's very nature of the dependent rising. And so here the saying, you have sensual consciousness and the mental consciousness too. So which can more and closely engage to the dependent nature. So then the sensual, eye conscious, nose conscious, tongue conscious has more direct access to the dependent natures. The mental consciousness always go through the mediations. Is project its image and then you try to reach that. So the mental consciousness or the thought has no direct access to the dependent natures. So which means beyond the realm of the concept. So any dependent risings is beyond the realm of the concept. So any concept is not going to explicitly or directly experience or perceive any dependent natures. Thought of the tree.
This is a Cittamatra's point of view. This is having
Cittamatra, and it's also true in the Prasangik school. The thought cannot directly experience any object. So whatever the direct object to the thought is its own imagination. I think this also implying that the dependent natures is out of the realm of the concept, so any concept has no direct access or cannot experience directly to any of those dependent natures. Therefore, the sentient beings misunderstand the dependent natures. Right? And then the question comes, and then the rest of the sensual consciousness, which has direct access, why sentient beings confused? Eye consciousness can directly experience the form, air consciousness directly, without any imaginations. So what happened? Why they misunderstood? So sensory perceptions, it can directly experience the object, it can apprehend the object. So the sensory perceptions, it never comes from, inferential. So it has no logical, logically understanding. So therefore, only the eye consciousness sees only the color, has no idea of the color is, color is physically formed from the minute particles, or it is manifest from the consciousness. Eye consciousness is no knowledge of that. It only have the knowledge is, yes, there is the color. Right? So to understand the color is, color is formed from the propensity, or color is from minute particles.
I think I must have misheard you. I thought you said dependent nature is not, how can I put it? It's not perceivable by thought, but I thought dependent nature is what's imputed. We impute with thought dependent nature. What I thought I heard you say seems counterintuitive unless I misheard.
Yeah. So this is sometimes we call in the Vinaya text. There's a particular term for that. We call Shen, influence. So right now, we are particularly, talking about mind-only school point of views, mind-only schools understandings. So sometimes we influence from the, scientific schools says everything is imputed. Now, the other power nature must be imputedly exist by the thought. So no. So other power natures unimputed. Other power natures is to truly exist. Imputed phenomena are not truly exist. The mind-only school says. The mind-only school. So there also says the table. The carpenter make the table. He did not make from thought. He made with hands in the what do you call saw. So tools, right? So it's not made by his concept. So the sprout, the plants that born from the seed and soil and sun and water is not from the thought. Right? So mind-only school said these are the purely arising from their own cosmic condition. Therefore, all the dependent nature must be truly exist. So, therefore, the dependent arising or the dependent nature are, has never really directly experienced or perceived by any concept. So this means that, beyond the realm of the concept, so beyond the realm of the concept. So I think that explains that it is beyond the realm of the concept, but to understand that you have to go through the concept, through the conceptualizations. So now that is the challenging, to understand the dependent nature through the concept. Every concept has no direct access to the dependent arising. Now, one, ordinary sentient beings understand the dependent nature through assumptions, speculations, misconceptions. And the noble beings, understand the dependent nature through the concept by relying on valid reasoning, logically, inferentials, right? So they infer, and how the dependent risings, based on the reasoning. So even the concept even the concept itself is almost like a blind, but some blinds are skillful. So they can measure things. They can judge things from the measurement, right? So I think this is the problem, why sentient beings, dependent risings are truly exist, and then beyond the concept. So, liberations, no suffering, happiness is, so happiness and suffering is misunderstanding, superimposing on the object, other power nature, or the dependent nature, and the happiness, or the peace, or the sustainable, happiness is through, properly understanding of the dependent natures. You get it?
It just feels confusing that.
For example, here, see, there's a hell realm, animal realms, many suffering realms. So these are from, how sentient beings, involuntarily and falling in the suffering realm. So each of the sentient beings, there is no desire to go to the suffering realm, right? So there are speculations. So my happiness is from lying. My happiness from, so this lie is not going to lead me to the this lie is not going to bring any suffering, because I see when I lie, I get this. So there is, because when I lie, so I can cheat you, I can get something from you, or I can, guide you, I can get something. So that is the focus. And the consequences of the lying, and we ignore. So that is the dependent rising. So this dependent rising, to understand the consequences of the lying, consequences of the killing, all the non-virtuous actions. So we don't really see that. So to see that, you have to use the, intellectual, right? You have to use knowledge. So that dependent rising could not understand by the sentient beings, ordinary sentient beings, right? So, and they misunderstood, or they misjudged on the relation of this non-virtuous actions and the consequences of non-virtuous actions. So, so that lying is continuously causing suffering to the sentient beings. Is it too general? Is not too specific? So here they're saying, the basic idea is dependent natures must be truly exist, because this is the basis. This is the one, with that sentient being are cycling samsara, and noble beings are finding the path to liberations.
Right.
Now the question is, and that dependent rising is beyond the concept. It's not the realm of the concept.
Okay.
So your thought cannot directly perceive that dependent natures. And now the question is, if the sentient beings and noble being is their thought, their concept, their thought is not going to directly perceive the dependent rising, and how noble being understand the dependent rising correctly through the thought, how sentient beings misunderstood the dependent natures, mistakenly from thought. So that is questions, because both thought, thought in noble being, thought in ordinary sentient beings, no direct access to the dependent natures. And then it also says there is one perceptions, both ordinary sentient beings, noble being, can directly experience the dependent natures that are the sensory perceptions. Sensory perceptions lack the wisdom. Right? This is like, sometimes the animals, they judge things from the smell, right? They say, oh, this is not good, But this eye consciousness is worse than that. so eye consciousness, it can, triggers misconceptions.
Mm-hmm.
And ear consciousness, like, just hearing something, immediately you just, misjudge, misunderstand. And eye consciousness, all of them that. But each of the sensory perceptions lacking the knowledge, weaken the wisdom. So the wisdom can be developed within the thought. And thought is blind. Now blind man has to decide. Right? So if the blind man is skillful, means, skillful and he understands. And blind and no skill, no wisdom, and then always stumbles. So that's the mind, the very basic idea of the mind-only school. So, and that also, it also tells the whole story of the samsara and the liberations. Right. So now, it's trying to point out that wisdom, realizing emptiness. Without this, you cannot find the liberations. So the wisdom has to be generated or developed within the thought first. And then continuously perfecting that thought, become the direct perceptions. Yeah. So then the noble path. And then that will lead to the liberations. So this is like, ordinary sentient beings, noble beings, in the classmen, they always go to the school, So the ordinary sentient beings, they just can hear, they see, but they have no interest to understand anything. So noble being, just by looking at, seeing, they also analyze and understand. So they have always kind of, interact with the dependent risings. So these are our classes, right? So these ordinary sentient beings, not trying to understand the nature, and rather they are more excited and interested in exaggeration, annihilations. So noble being, so what you see, and smell, and taste, feel, and what you imagine, what you characterize, they always try to understand the very nature of that, so that the object is not going to deceive them. So I think, yeah. So given that this, settled meaning of the scripture is known to be as we have explained above, one should accept without hesitations. So as scripture has described, that all the subjects, the dependent natures, must be truly exist. Don't miss out, without any doubt. So mind-only school says you have to accept this is truly exist. So therefore, the dependent nature has intrinsic existence This is because we maintain it to be cause of the entire network of the conceptualizations, such as the apprehension of the things of the subject and object world as imputed, as existing as a substantially dualistic or distinct from each other's.
I think that's the thing that throws me off a little bit, is how they can say something like dependent origination is inherent. It just seems like it's like opposed, like just by saying that. And that's probably what I think makes it confusing. For me. Good for them. Glad that they have that. But
So now they're saying, if we ask minority school, now and we understand the dependent natures, that both noble beings and ordinary beings always engage with the dependent natures. One with misunderstanding, most of the time misunderstand, misinterpretations. One trying to understand the best of their knowledge, the kind of as it is of the nature of the dependent arising. So now the question is, so ordinary sentient beings, is ordinary sentient beings, the actual, ordinary sentient beings, in what conditions they're cycling in samsara? Because they're not knowing the impermanence, or they're not knowing, is not knowing the condition of suffering, or in what condition they are cycling in samsara. So minority school would say that the main condition, the cause, that ordinary sentient being cycling in samsara is seeing the dualistic subject and object, not just impermanence, not just condition of suffering. So not just faith in Buddha is the root cause of the cycle of samsara is the dualistic appearance, dualistic things, believing in that. So now the question is, what is the dualistic, dualistic appearance? So then says, minority school says, when you look at the color, you see the color is independent from eye consciousness. That is the dualistic appearance. So without any doubt, as it appears, you believe. That is the root cause for the cycling samsara. And then the so I think the main cause of this, the root cause of the cyclic existence is the dualistic appearance, dualistic, subject and object as two distinct phenomena. Still want to ask question like, so does it include seeing the object independent? Right? What you see is something independent from yourself. And what you imagine is independent from yourself. What you conceive is independent from yourself. So another question is, what you imagine, what you conceive, what you see, what you hear, every object is always identified independent from the subject. If this is the reason that cause us cycling samsara, this is the reason that make us angry, attached, jealousy, then we still need many more detailed, explanations. So now the question, with anger, how do you see the dualistic? So with anger, what you projected, that negative, that makes you angry, the characteristic that is projected by the thought, and seeing that as an independent phenomena is, because of that, the anger, it increases the anger. More you see the independent. And when you, out of attachment, seeing the favorable, attractive object, and more you see it independent, the stronger the attachment.
Prasangika doesn't have a disagreement on this point, does it?
Prasangika will, always say, amen. I agree with you. And that's, so this much I can bear with you. It's not unbearable. So now that when it comes to the, what is not bearable for the Prasangika school is, what you see, smell, feel, the hear, are all mature or kind of manifest from the consciousness. So that is, it's kind of, there is no any, how's that? It's sensible. If the sound of the guitar, the shape, the color are all manifest from my mind. So I don't, if the colors from my mind, I don't want to go to the Home Depot in Lowe's. So I just maybe look into my mind basis, or what color do I have? So every time the free color, I get free paint. Whole house. So, that color, the substance, and that also conditioned by another substance, like a green. The green colors is from yellow and blue, right? The light yellow and blue together. So it's not from the, kind of the seed of the substantial seed of that is not from the consciousness, is the external substance. And then my Prasangika school says, and also you are trying to prove that the concept of that is true, and using the example of the dream object, that's totally beyond, reasonable. It's not really logical. Without open eye, I can imagine color. That color that I imagine is a part of my mind. When I open the color, that too is my mind. That's, there's a big difference. So when you close the eye and you imagine your car, where you park the car, and this is my imagination, right. And then the rails, the car that you see. Sometimes when you close the eye, yes, your car is there. When you open, someone took it. so car is no longer there. So you still, again, to find the car, you just go back to the you close your eye and then just, you're still there, my car is still there. So that kind of, there's a little bit, this is called the leap of faith, that they want to go on that subject. So they feel more closer because it supports the mind basis of all. It's supporting the mind basis of all. Because, so your background is you are told so many times, so many years, generations, things are happening due to one sources. And before you thought that is the Shiva or Ishvara, the Bhagavan. Now, and when you follow the Buddha never mentioned about there's a Ishvara or Maheshwara. Nothing come out from Buddha's mouth. But because you have a strong imprints, that in your mind, and then says, "Oh, mind basis all." That really kind of, it tickles me. I like it. So that refuting external reality is, they think it is. They are bringing more closer to the source of that, to have more stronger faith in mind basis all. So I think that is part of the religious leap of faith there. And also, and the question is Buddha has taught them, and there is the source of everything, that is the mind basis of one single thing, the mind basis of all. Is Buddha mentioned that? Is it explicitly taught in the second tiny wheel of the Dharma? No. But Buddha has used the term, foundational basis. So, and that also understood in the Prasangic school and Tantrayana, they also use the same word, but a different meaning. So the Nagarjunas are using the word of foundation, the foundational basis, kunjishis, foundation, basis of all. So Nagarjuna thinks this is the ultimate nature of the consciousness, ultimate nature of the phenomena. So when the absence or intrinsic nature of the phenomena is the foundation basis. From there, second existence, from there, liberations. Therefore, because of the absence of intrinsic existence, things can born, things can disintegrate, things can again born, and things can disintegrate. So all possible because of things are not intrinsically exist. So the absence of intrinsic existence is the foundational basis. So in minority school, and not just foundational basis, foundational consciousness, and consciousness which is separate from the eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, even the mental consciousness. So sixth consciousness, apart from that, separate from the sixth consciousness. And this is the one individual consciousness, is the storage room. Pantry house is the pantry. So something that all consciousness born from that. All the color, sound, smell are born from that. All the planets, the mountains, all born from that. That's a little bit, it's kind of totally, it's a faith, leap of faith. It's a very, overjump. But still, it makes sense when you say, the dependent nature is the basis for the second existence samsara. Yeah. And then sensual and the mental. The sensual has the direct access to the dependent nature, but lacks the wisdom, understand. And thought, can develop the wisdom, but thought is have no direct access to directly experience the dependent natures, because the thought always require to engage in any kind of object has to go through its own projection, its own mediation. So three imaginations. So then, and how the thought can enable it to be more, precise to understand the dependent natures. Then says, when the thought, become the wisdom, right? When thought become the wisdom, when thought goes with reasoning, and then thought can understands the dependent natures as it is. So one who has not been able to generate the wisdom within the thought, and they are cycling in samsara. So, the minority schools directly pointing, maybe there's many causes, non-virtues, and, misconceptions, impermanence as a permanent, all are cause for the suffering, but the root of that is subject and object dualistic.
It sounds like there's two kinds of wisdom. One is what you just talked about, with thought, using logic to understand things as they are. But that's a different kind of wisdom than a Buddha has. He doesn't have the intervention of thought, does he? He sees directly. He doesn't have to go through this. I mean, even if you're using logic, it still relies on a kind of projection.
Yeah, when you are in the airplane, you don't have to carry the baggage. So to go to the airplane, you have to carry your baggage. You have to drag your luggage, right? So when you get into the airplane, you just sit there comfortably. So Buddha is like that. Buddha is not become the Buddha, without going through all this, the intellectual understanding. So the perfecting the wisdom, and then he become the omniscient.
But some of the, when you look at like the stories of the Buddha, he seems to always, even before he became the Buddha, he seems to have this kind of very direct clarity. I mean, at least in the movie that was made in India. So, I don't know if that's accurate or not.
We are always attracted to the stories, So when we are young, we like the comic, Superman, Spider-Man. Now we understand this is not it's nothing to do with real life. So maybe Larry is still young, like a teenager, always attracted to the stories. So I think that's the it's pretty much clear now. So now the illusion of the snake that is based on the seeing a coiled rope does not arise where no rope is present. That's true. So therefore rope must truly exist there. And similarly, the false perceptions of the object, such as vase, does not occur just in the sky. So without some physical locus, in the same manner, there is the question of what is the basis or the cause of the illusion that conceives things such as blue patch as external, since there is no external realities. So therefore, one must accept without doubt the existing of an imperfect dependent arising, or contaminated dependent arising. So natures that is perceived in the dualistic term of the substantially distinct subject and object. So which is the cause for the illusion of external reality. And this base of the perceptions, namely dependent natures, constitute the cause of both bondage and afflicted existence and the freedom of the enlightenment. So as I mentioned earlier, yes. So minority school very much emphasizing that anything that born from cosmic conditions must be truly exist. Because this is the basis for the second existing and the liberations. This is like a coil rope, which is there. Therefore, one can misconceive, one can understand correctly. In either of the two systems, whether the Madhyamika or the Cittamatra, if there is the presentation of emptiness whereby the very things that constitute the basis of clinging, the things that ordinary sentient beings perceives and the grasps as a truly existence in the manner they perceived it to, is shown to be empty of that mode of existence. Then the realization such emptiness constitutes the path to liberation. If one does not take the negation of that, the conceived object of the ordinary sentient beings clinging to the truly existing to be realization of the emptiness, but establish some externus, emptiness to be truth instead. So this is a little bit, So now to understand the emptiness, and the Prasangika school is very simple. Like, for example, when there is a table or the pot, so that is the table of the pot is the base, and understand the table as not truly exist, not intrinsically exist, is the realization of emptiness. Not just by perceiving table is the cause of the samsara. The table is intrinsically, it is independently. So the table is independently existing is the ignorance, which is the cause of the samsara. So the minority school, there's a little bit tricky. This is the basis are truly exist, which means, almost like, you don't analyze, examine on the other power natures. That is perfectly, truly exist there. So now the question is, how do you understand emptiness? And then this is, the non-dualistic and emptying the dualistic, emptying the externals. So when you listen to that, and so for example, if we say, I understand the minority school, you said anything that born from the cosmic conditions are perfectly, truly exist. There's nothing to analyze. So only thing that I need to analyze, to examine is the subject and object are dualistic or non-dualistic. So the non-dualistic or empty of the dualistic, duality, or duality or dualistic. So it's empty of duality, subject and object is that the emptiness? So is this the emptiness and the negation elements where I'm negating? I'm not negating any characteristic with subject, not with object. So I'm refuting some kind of negation element in empty. Because the subject's consciousness is truly exists, object, the dependent natures truly exist. So something's not truly exist, and there's the dual kind of dualistic, the appearance of that is empty. So then some critics they says, oh, the mind only school emptiness is what called emptying. Shantung means empty of something. How's that? So what they use the term is externus, right? Externus, something that usually we understand this table is impermanent of the permanent. We empty the permanent characteristic of the table. So that we say, therefore I understand the table is impermanent. So here we are not analyzing on the table, we are not analyzing on the other power natures, and we are just looks like you are trying to refute something, how it appears to the consciousness. How it appears to the consciousness. So this mind-only school, Sutra, the unraveling thought. And, some, one of the great master in Tibet, we call Chonamba, Kunchen Chonamba. So he kind of, study and thoroughly study, and then he, come up with some kind of, final, decisions that he thought he come to understand what is the Sutra, the unraveling thought, the mind-only school scriptures. And he says, so the very ultimate nature, ultimatism, with the pure nature of the consciousness is the only one that truly exists. Other than that, nothing truly exists. So it's a little bit going, maybe, so that many of the master, they criticize that you are extraneous,
Extraneous.
Extraneous, empty. You are emptying something, so to understand the emptiness of the table, you are emptying somewhere else. Now you are emptying on, mango, apples, or something, mountains. So actually, you're trying to understand the nature of the table, but when you come to the negating the negation element, you are emptying somewhere else. Something is not there. Therefore, this is non-dualistic.
Okay, two questions. One is the phrase here and the application of this phrase. By understanding one, you understand all. So what does it really matter whether you're emptying a table or you're emptying an onion, number one. Number two, this is what I was trying to, I forgot the term, and I don't remember the argument. The Shentong Rangtong, these two schools, Shentong Rangtong. Does this come in here, and what is the difference? This is a big debate, right? These two schools. No, it's not a big debate.
It's not a big debate to you.
I used to understand the difference between Shentong and Rangtong. Can you go into that a little bit?
Which was number one?
Number one, by understanding one, you understand all. And you were giving the example, instead of emptying the table, you empty a mango. And I mean, my question is, in a way, what difference does it make if they both have the same, at the heart, the same issue of, do they truly exist? Do they have an inherent nature? And if by understanding one you understand all, what does it matter whether you empty a table or you empty a mango? You come to the same conclusion, don't you?
Yeah, you just cook, or you just farm, or you just go to Target selling, just by knowing one and knowing everything.
And I'm talking about understand the nature. I'm not suggesting they have the same use, that you can eat a table or put things on a mango. I'm just saying, when it comes to understanding the essential nature of what emptiness is, and then there's in this paragraph we just read, there's something about how you can misapprehend what emptiness is, and then you've completely lost it. It's your investigation will be fruitless.
Yeah, I'm trying to come to that point.
Okay.
So, and this is my warm-up. I'm going there and there and there. Then at final dance will start performance. So before I boil up the water, you're just jumping into it. So I don't want to cook you. Yeah. So first, let me cook the boil. My boiled water. So that's what I'm saying. There's some people think that, some people mean, it's mindfulness school, the emptiness from the Cittamatra school and the Prasangic school and other schools. This is when the mindfulness school talking about subject and objects truly exist, and which ones not truly exist. Therefore, there's emptiness. So that automatically comes. Consciousness truly exists, and the object of consciousness truly exists. So emptiness comes from something is not true. Absence of truth. Therefore, there's emptiness, empty of truly existence. So you say, I consciousness truly exists. The form is truly exist, and emptiness of the form, where it comes. Empty what? By emptying what? So that, then the mindfulness school says the empty of, dualistic appearance of the I consciousness and the form. So then there's two things comes to, two things comes in realizations. One is not dual, not dualistic, not, the subject and object is not distinct, not separate. Therefore, they are one. So the mind only comes. The form that I see through eye consciousness is not out there. So by emptying, it's external, and then you come to understand, oh, the form that I see with eye consciousness is a part of the eye consciousness. Is the part of eye consciousness. And then the question is how the form and eye consciousness in one nature, how you become one in subject, one in object. So then the Prasangika school said, this is like, when you, one seed, when you put in the soil, from the seed to, two phase of the leaf comes from one seed, like actually born from one identical seed. So, but when it comes, it's separate. So in this way, from the mind basis or the propensity, one of the propensity that manifests or that mature, that manifests in the form of the one side is the consciousness, one side is the form. So, now to understand, to realize this form is no different from the consciousness. It is the nature of the consciousness. And with that, you have empty the different. You have constituted. You come to affirmatively understood. This is nothing but eye consciousness. So this is the Prasangika school says. Now, you are emptying the truly existing on dual appearance. That dual appearance is out of misconceptions, is the superimposition that you are emptying the truly exist. You are emptying the truly existing in superimposition. So that's the mind-only schools, and to support that, we understand that your emptiness is emptying the truly existing of the dualistic appearance. So, which means not dualistic. It is the one nature, right? It is the one nature. Like, when the glass, put in the blue fabric, and then the blueness in the glass, right? So there are the blueness that glass and the glass are no different. So they think, like this blueness that reflect on the glass and then seems to, like eye consciousness, from the propensity, the one seed that manifests, and one in the form as a consciousness, one as an object, as a form, and the form that is in different colors, right? So the both are eye consciousness and the form are in the eye is the same nature. It's like it's a one thing, and that it appears separately.
This is Prasangika.
No, the Prasangika, mind-only school. Mind-only school.
On the basis of it being like a misconception that sounds okay, but I think the problem is when it's like, oh, now you're positing that it's, like you were saying, from that one thing, then those two things arise. Like, it's like, I can accept, like, oh, well, yes, like, blue being in the cup is incorrect. It's incorrect. It's a misconception. But, yeah.
The blueness of the glass and the glass as two separate, two different is misconceptions. And the one nature is the right perceptions. So the form and the eye consciousness, it appears as a two, separately. One is subject, one consciousness, one is object. That is the dualistic appearance. So now the emptiness means you have to empty true nature of something. You cannot empty the true nature of the consciousness. You cannot empty true nature of the object or form. And what you're emptying the true nature is, I am emptying the true nature of that dualistic appearance, that, appearing the subject and object as the two separate. So that is the main kind of, minority school, the main point. So then there's many questions. How do you really say the I form that is, not different from, not separate from I consciousness? Sound is not different from air consciousness. And then the minority school, to support that, this is because there is no minute particles, so therefore nothing can be formed from the minute particle, so therefore nothing external exists. And then jump into that mind only.
I don't understand when my only school says it seems a contradiction. They say the external object is truly exist. They agree with that part.
No. They don't say external object is truly exists.
I thought it agree with the same thing. Is a condition, cause and condition, cause and condition produce something, and that's truly exist.
Minority school. I think first you listen. Minority school accept there is a form, sound, smell, taste, textures. The minority school says, nowadays says, what is the bad thing is, they are not external. There is no external form, no external sound, no external smell, no external taste, no external textures. So why you're so kind of, why keep saying the no external? And then, there's a 2 point. One, so everything's the manifest, everything, the sounds, the form, sound, smell, taste, all are from the consciousness. Consciousness reflects, consciousness manifests as a form, or object. And then the question is, how can you really prove this form, sound, smell, taste, all, manifest from the consciousness, all are nature of the consciousness. And then this is, if the form and sound, smell are not, not part of the consciousness, not emerged from the consciousness, then it has to be, like particularly, the form has to be, formed or physically formed from the collection of the minute partless particles. So there is no minute partless particle, therefore there is no collections from that minute particle, partless particle, to form into physical. So that's why I'm saying there's a leap of faith there. So no minute partless particle, therefore nothing can be physically formed from minute partless particle. But for us, this is, so that means anything that physically formed has to be formed from collection of the particles which has part. So I can, we can understand the form is, formed, right? Formed, physically formed from the collection of the particle which has the part, not without the part. Particle which has directions, not the directionless parts. So, every particles, most minute particles, which has the directions, therefore collecting thousands, 2,000, millions, and then it can be formed. And it finally could see through the eye consciousness.
That I can understand, but how do they explain the form from my own? They say everything's coming from the consciousness,
Yeah.
and there's no minute particle, or they are talking about the particle-less particle.
Yeah.
I don't quite understand about how could they form from consciousness to form a color or form. I guess that's. I guess I accept that part.
If there's a mind-only school come to our class, may want to slap on that. What nonsense you're talking about? so that's, and this is why Chandrakirti wants to point out what is the mind-only schools, that they kind of detail how they how they constitute that point of view. So to understand clearly about the mind-only school and what is lacking that in any logic and reasonings, what is incomplete there, and then this is how you enter the Prasangika school. So we are not trying to, so we are not trying to, advocate the mind-only school. So we're trying to understand what exactly, how they really come into this understanding of believing in the mind only. So I see that here, non-dualistic, empty of non-dualistic or empty of the dualistic appearance, and that's supported by the empty of external reality. And external reality, the way they empty of external reality constitute from, and the very absurd reasoning, because there is no directionless particle, therefore no external. So which means, it is optional. When there is no directionless particle which can form into any physical, another option is the physical forms are from particles which has the directions. So still, there's no need to jump into it. Is it all from the mind? I think those maybe the physics. They also sometimes they says, there's some form. Usually, what we could understand the most subtle form, like particles, most subtle particles is the thing, is the form. Therefore, one particle can hijack its own, environment, right? It holds the environment. So it kind of obstruct another particle to take over that place that they occupied by the one particle. So usually we think that's the form, means that. Form means one form can, the hijack or kind of, it takes over the one particular space, and that not allowing other particles to overlap on that. Right. So now there's another form that's, if you go a little bit more further, and two forms can overlap. They can, if you put stack on one and they're exactly the same, but you can also split them. So that sometimes they want to say that like wave of something. It's a form. It has a motion. So sometimes people says that's directionless, and still says if this is directionless, it should not have any motion. You cannot prove it is going its direction or not directions. If you find it has the motion, it can go forward and backward, which means still it has the direction. Direction not necessarily be triangle or kind of So the minority school always think that there's no directionless particles. If external, and it has to become from directionless particle. No directionless particle, therefore, only way the form, sound, smell could essentially they can manifest or mature is from the propensity. Yeah, sometimes, some smart people, they inquiry and they get tired. They want to go to the final decisions. So, without going, how's that? Completing their inquiry or their experiment, and they want to quick judgment. So the Prasangika school says this is, particularly in Ayurveda text. This is something very strange. It's, when you say there is no directionless particles which can form into any physical, and then another choice is physical forms are from the collection of the particle which has directions. So that that's very simple. How can you say there is no directionless particle, therefore no external, everything from mind?
Can you explain this? You mentioned about the Prasangika's view on subject-object duality, like one seed, there's a two sprout leaf coming up. This is from Prasangika's view.
No, mine only school.
Cittamatra
school. Because this is mind basis all, the basis of all, right? And there's many seeds. So there's the seed from this propensity that manifests, that mature into two things. One is a subject of consciousness, one is object. But the both subject and objects essentially they emerges from the propensities.
I misunderstood that too at first, but then I think over time I started to realize that you were saying that the two sprouts are like the subject and object. I thought at first that they were like consciousness,
like here, eye consciousness and the form.
Yeah, exactly.
Two, yeah.
Those are the two sprouts.
Yeah,
right.
From the one seed, which is kind of stays within the mind basis all.
Does Prasangika ever talks about subject-object duality?
Subject-object, yeah, there's non-duality of subject and object. Anger in its projections, but non-dualities. And attachment is an attractiveness. Mm-hmm. Is non-duality, because all is superimposed by the thought. Mm-hmm. So whatever the superimposition is no different from that the thought which is superimposing.
Yeah, I always thought I understood the non-duality being that each object doesn't exist from its own side. And so that's how there can't be dualism if there is no object.
Yeah, when you wear the sunglasses, the red sunglasses, when you look at the snow, you see the snow as red. The redness of snow is non-dual from your eyeglass.
Right.
It's because of that. It's part of that.
Right.
It's not because it's
Mhm.
fall from the sky. But in my unit schools, there sometimes it's very, very useful and very beneficial, like the practice of this believing in non-dualistics, in the sense that anger and attachments, all your projections, friend and enemies, all non-dualistic. It's because the mind projecting and then create. It's not because the enemy and friends are, from their own side. So and Shanti there was talk about, it says the patience, the practice of the patience, like, so Shanti there was, says that, how can you, say, for example, the enemies and unfriendly or harmful people or the environments. So because of that, you project that, and there's some kind of restriction that you restrained and to be closer to them. So then says, so this whole can be removed by overcoming the anger or the hatefulness. So is it like a patient? The practice of the patient is like you. I think you still say certain times if there's a you are when you are trying to walk on, when you are walking on the place, there is a filled with thorn. And how do you do? Do you first cover all this place and then you walk, or you just simply wear one shoes and then you walk on? So the patient is the one single that pacifies all the harmful environment or unfriendly or enemies. You can see everything is like more friendly and more harmony. But just by overcoming your own anger, right? Pacifying your own anger, you can find everything's friendly. So these are talking about, that, this is the people I don't want to see. This is the people I don't want to go closer. This is the area. So all projected by your harmful thoughts, harmful habits. So if you, through the practice of the compassions, love and compassions, pacify one's own harmful thought, and this whole appearance of harmony will pacify. So that is it. It's kind of like here the non-dualistic practice. So many times, superimpositional objects or impositional objects are pretty much is not really kind of subject and object independent. So concept of I am and my nations, I am and my nation, my race, my class are all, it's not beyond the thought. It is a part of the thought. It's the projection of the thought. And then, like the difference, the concept of table is different from the computer, and computer is different from the table. Therefore, table being different from the computer is independent. That is also superimpositional. Yes, you can say table is different from the computer is different from the table, but table being different from the computer is not independent. Every time the table finds different from the computer is without existing the computer, you cannot find table is different from the computer. Right? To find horse is different from cow. Without existing of the cow, there is no way you can find the horse is different from the cow. When the cow is non-existent, and there is horse being different from cow is non-existence. How can horse being different from the cow become independent? That is, impositional factor. So impositional factors is non-dualistic with the thought. Is the projection of the thought. So the different and the differentials, all these concepts are, like the minority school saying, they're non-dualistic. And then the favorable and unfavorable, they are being separate. And, you see the difference in the favorable and unfavorable. Attractive and unattractive, right? So the difference or being difference or appears difference are non-dualistic from the subject. Because every time you find favorable, without unfavorable, comparing with unfavorable, you cannot find favorable. So these are also, like minority school says, it's non-dualistic. It's no different from the subject. Now, because of that, and we Prasangika school, they do not jump into saying the color that I see, they're not external. They're not saying that. The sound of the guitar that I listens is from my mind. No, if someone is playing, one who is other than me is playing, therefore I can hear the sound. It's not the mind basis all is playing guitar inside and I can hear it. Okay, yeah. I think there is. Yeah?
Yeah, one question. Okay, so the mind projects all these different forms, favorable and unfavorable, which we are attracted or repelled or neutral. That's the feelings that go along with that. And, you would think, or I would think, with equanimity.
I think
equanimity.
So you see the difference. Oh, you would think, or I would think, or I would think. But
yeah, well, subject and object.
Because subject is attractive.
Subject and object. you or me, subject to
So
object.
if subject is attractive, it's me. So subject is unattractive, it's you.
So, I mean, it would seem that as long as we have this favorable and favorable duality, these two things which rely on each other, we're very much stuck in samsara. And until we develop equanimity, where there's more of a neutrality towards any form that arises, it's no longer interpreted as favorable or unfavorable. It seems we would be stuck in samsara. So does this equanimity just arise from understanding the mechanism of projection and superimposition as being favorable and unfavorable? How does all this stuff get disarmed?
You have to diffuse them, cutting the wire of
The blue wire,
intrinsic wire. So then you can diffuse all this bomb. So I think the favorable and unfavorable, and then you're saying neutral, the equanimity. I think the favorable is the object, the property that belongs to the attachment, and unfavorable, that is property that is detachment. So usually you will say anger and attachment and equanimity, the balancing that. So sometimes people interpret that equanimity is, or neutral means numbness. You have no feeling, close or detached. So I think in that case, you're, kind of indicating Buddha has no no sense of closeness, no interest in anything, because he is in neutral. So he sees nothing favorable, unfavorable. I think it's not like that. The favorable that is constructed to the attachment. So that every time there is something favorable that attracts you, that draws your mind towards that, and that which means there's some kind of, is a sign of attachment. And unfavorable, that kind of, some kind of disliking, detachment, disliking. So I think that's the thing. If you say the favorable is friendly and peaceful, closeness, happiness, and then you say, yes, there is a favorable object to the Buddha and the Bodhisattvas, because everything that he sees only brings the peace and happiness. Right? So now here the favorable, unfavorable is more kind of related to the particular subject. Favorable has the attractions, and unfavorable, which has, opposite of attraction is repulsion. Yeah. So that pretty much explains. There is the degree of the attachment and detachment is there. Yeah. So this very idea of the attractions only exists because of the attachment, and unfavorable is because there is something disliking, this. So therefore it exists. So which means this is the private property of these afflicted emotions. So this whole can be pacified when you perfectly, abandon this anger and attachment. So that does not mean any object, mind, Buddha and Bodhisattva, which is free from anger and attachment, and they don't have any friendly object. So, as I mentioned, favorable, they characterized with attractions and repulsion, right? Repulsion. So that kind of things, because these are non-dualistic with subject. It's the reflections of the subject. So I think there's a mind training that's talking about, Nangsi Nyendu means that every appearance becomes the friendly out of compassion, right? So through the practice of the compassion, the Bodhisattvas, and it is possible this individual Bodhisattva can, anything that appears to them is, harmony and friendly, beneficial. So there's no repulsion, anything. It is possible. So I think there's the language is not being, able to deliver exact the meaning. You have to understand, with the subject, and with this subject we are saying this is the, favorable and unfavorable. So the existing of the favorable is depending upon unfavorable. That very unfavorable, which is the cause, which is the condition for the unfavorable, is dependent on favorable. Unfavorable, which is depending on favorable, that favorable is dependent on unfavorable. So these two, mutually benefiting. Because of the anger, there's something to attach. Therefore, you have something to, to defend or to offend for, because of you have attached to something, right? And you have the when you have the angry or you are disliking something, because that means you have fixated on something else. That drives you to not liking or disliking something. Right? So the anger and attachment is aspect as contradict, mutually exclusive, but in the and in the very root, they are benefiting. This is like two parties. So the more they fight, more they helps others to sustain. If one becomes friendly to others, and then both collapse, so they have to keep fight. Okay. Change center was
May the precious Bodhi mind not get born, rise and grow. May that born and Bodhi mind that increase forevermore. May the precious mind realizing emptiness not get born, rise and grow. May that born have no decline but increase forevermore. Due to all these things, may all Father and Mother sentient beings of all happiness, and may all the lower realms be empty forever. Wherever there are Bodhisattvas, may all their prayers be accomplished immediately. In the sacred land surrounded by snow mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. O powerful Chandrakirti and Zingatso, remain in this world until samsara ends.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you. Namo Buddhaya.